I woke up this morning and it felt like someone had poured cement into my bones overnight. My legs were screaming, my joints were locked, and my body was already exhausted before I even got out of bed. This is what chronic pain looks like, and you wouldn't know it if you saw me walking down the street. If I could walk that day. Welcome back to Just Jess. I'm Jess Faulkner. Today, we're getting into something personal and painfully common, chronic pain. I didn't know what I didn't know until I became one of the people quietly suffering through it. This episode isn't just a story. It's a deep dive, full of facts, feelings, and fire. This feels so important that I needed to come back and talk about it loudly. I have been having a hard time with pain. I've never lived with chronic pain until now, and I gotta tell you, I'm not made for it. I never realized that this is what it was like for those dealing with chronic pain. And now, I have a newfound respect, admiration, and sadness for those living with chronic pain. I just cannot fathom how people do this day in and day out without being so heavily medicated that they cannot function. I know that if I were on all the meds that they gave me and took them as prescribed for my legs, I wouldn't be functioning. I wouldn't be able to function. The muscle relaxers that my hematologist gave me knock my ass out. The oxycodone that I was prescribed makes me fuzzy and not able to retain any memories while I'm on them. The Ativan does help a bit, but I have to take so much of it in a day that I just live on it at that point. Imagine your bones aren't just holding you up, they're buzzing, like they've been hollowed out and filled with pressure or electricity or something that doesn't belong. It's not muscle pain. It's not joint pain. It's inside. Like something is pushing outward from the marrow itself. Deep, aching, and relentless. Sometimes it feels like growing pains dialed up to a 10. Other times, like there's cement hardening inside my legs while fire ants crawl through the cracks. It throbs. It burns. It drills down into your core. There's no comfortable position, no magical stretching, no amount of rest that makes it stop. You can sit too long and it hurts, stand too long and it screams, walk too far and it turns into lightning shooting down your legs. It's exhausting in a way that's hard to describe, like your body is fighting a war no one can see, and your bones are the battlefield. And the worst part? Most people don't know what essential thrombocythemia is. They don't see the pain. They don't feel it. But it's there. Every fucking day. Essential thrombocythemia, also known as ET, is a chronic blood cancer that causes your bone marrow to produce too many platelets, those tiny cell fragments responsible for clotting. But here's where the pain comes from. An overactive bone marrow. Your bone marrow is the factory where blood cells are made. In ET, that factory is in overdrive, constantly pumping out platelets, even when your body doesn't need them. That constant activity creates pressure, inflammation, and metabolic stress deep in the bones, especially in the legs, hips, pelvis, and lower back. It's like the marrow is swollen from overwork. It's also from marrow expansion and fibrosis. In some cases, the overactivity can lead to fibrosis or scarring of the marrow. When fibrotic tissue starts to replace healthy bone marrow, it causes deep, gnawing, aching pain. Even without full-blown myelofibrosis, early scarring and cellular crowding can cause serious discomfort. Chronic inflammation is a huge part of ET too, even when your labs don't always show it. The pain can trigger an inflammatory messenger called cytokines that worsen nerve sensitivity and bone pain. This is why the pain can feel like a strange mix of pressure, heat, burning, and electrical zaps. As the bone marrow expands and inflammation builds, it can irritate nearby nerves, especially in the legs and the spine. That's why you might feel pain that radiates, pulses, or worsens with movement or weight bearing. That's also what made me start looking for other options. And for me, that's nerve ablation. So what is nerve ablation? It's a procedure where they use heat or sometimes cold to destroy tiny nerve endings that send pain signals to the brain. Those nerves aren't needed for movement or strength, just for pain. By turning off those pain signals, I can find some relief without chasing medications, without spiraling. I know it's not a cure. It's not perfect. But for someone with cancer that's technically chronic, not curable, it's a tool. It's hope. It's one less night crying on the floor because my legs feel like they're screaming from the inside. Managing pain with cancer means balancing meds, side effects, fear, and function. It's medical. It's emotional. It's deeply personal. But this is the path I'm taking because I still want to live. Really live. And sometimes that means burning the nerve that's screaming the loudest so I can finally hear myself think again. So let's start with what chronic pain actually is. It's defined as pain that lasts longer than 3 months. Not a pulled muscle or a sore back from sleeping wrong. This is pain that lingers. Pain that settles into your life like an unwanted roommate. According to the CDC, over 51.6 million adults in the US, or about 1 in 5, live with chronic pain. And 17.1 million of those people live with what's called high-impact chronic pain. That means their pain is so severe, it limits their ability to work or even live independently. Globally, the number is staggering. Over 1.5 billion people are affected by chronic pain. This isn't occasional discomfort. This is waking up in pain, going to bed in pain, dreaming in pain, and somehow still being expected to function. Now let's talk about the mental health toll, because chronic pain doesn't just stay in your joints or your spine. It gets in your head. According to Johns Hopkins, up to 40% of people with chronic pain also experience major depression or anxiety. That's nearly half of us walking around not just hurting physically, but mentally and emotionally too. It gets darker. Studies show that people with chronic pain are at a much higher risk of suicidal ideations and attempts. One study found that anywhere from 20 to 50% of those with chronic pain have considered suicide, and 5 to 14% have attempted it. And this isn't just because of the pain itself. It's the isolation, the invalidation, the way people look at you like you're lazy or faking it because they can't see you're suffering. And if you're like me, you've also seen what can happen when pain treatment spirals. I lost my friend Dennis to this. He was one of the most frustrating and annoying, but kind and funny people I've ever met. When he got injured, he needed pain meds, really needed them. But his tolerance kept climbing. The doses went up. Then the doctor's visits. Then the desperation. Dennis would come over to the house where Robbie and I lived and sit and play WoW for hours. But he'd also take his pain meds and end up passing out and falling out of the chair. I don't know if his death was an accident or suicide. I know he left a note. I know his light dimmed slowly, then all at once. And I know that fear of ending up like Dennis, is one of the things that keeps me honest with my own medication use. I want to take a moment to say, if you're scared, if you're spiraling, if you're struggling to manage your pain and your mental health, please reach out. This show has always been a lifeline, not just a microphone. Let's talk about something else I've experienced firsthand: gender bias in pain treatment. Around 70% of chronic pain sufferers are women, yet 80% of pain studies have been done on men. What that means is we're being underrepresented in research and underserved in treatment. Women, especially women of color, are more likely to have their pain dismissed, more likely to be told it's psychological or just stress, more likely to be offered sedatives than pain medication. It's infuriating because we're not imagining this. The system just wasn't built for us. Even when it comes to mental health care, there's a huge treatment gap. More than half of the adults with chronic pain and psychiatric distress don't get adequate mental health treatment. A 2024 study found that only about 44% of those actively seeking help were actually receiving effective care. Let's bust some myths while we're here. Myth 1: you just need to exercise more. Maybe for some people, movement helps, but for others, it makes things worse. This is not a one-size-fits-all. Myth 2: you're just looking for attention or drugs. Most of us are just looking for relief, for compassion, for options. Myth 3: you don't look sick. Pain is often invisible. That doesn't make it less real. And finally, myth 4: it's all in your head. Pain can affect your brain, yes, but that doesn't mean it's not in your body too. Mental and physical pain reinforce each other. It's all connected. I wish someone had told me that chronic pain would change every part of my life. It would make me question my own worth, my sanity, my ability to parent, to work, to just exist in a world that doesn't slow down for people like me. I wish I knew that I'd grieve my old self, that I'd need to learn to love a new version of me, one that limps, rests, cancel plans, and sometimes just survive. I can't skateboard. I can't do yoga, working out, surfing, snowboarding, using a bicycle. I used to walk 10 to 20 miles every single day, and I can't even dream of doing that now. I wish I knew how strong I'd have to be, not just to deal with the pain, but to advocate for myself in a system that wasn't built for me. I wish I'd known how easy it is to slip into dependency, how little the system supports safe, ongoing pain management, how many of us are left to choose between agony and addiction. So what helps? Sometimes it's medication, when it's actually prescribed and monitored safely. Sometimes it's a heating pad or a massage gun. Sometimes it's therapy, both physical and mental. Sometimes it's using a cane or a wheelchair. Sometimes it's saying no to plans without guilt. Sometimes it's telling the truth when someone asks, "How are you?" Sometimes it's mindfulness or stretching or screaming into the void. Sometimes it's art. Sometimes it's podcasting. Sometimes it's simply surviving the day. Other times, it's the community, online support groups, hashtags like chronic pain or spoony life. Finding people who get it. If you're listening to this and you live with chronic pain, I see you. I am with you. You are not weak. You are not broken. You are surviving something most people couldn't handle. If you love someone with chronic pain, believe them, support them, ask what they need. Show up even when you don't understand. Here are some resources that can help. The National Suicide Prevention Line at 988. The U.S. Pain Foundation, found at uspainfoundation.org. Chronic Pain Anonymous, found at chronicpainanonymous.org. Pain Connection, found at uspainfoundation.org/painconnection. Practical Pain Management, found at practicalpainmanagement.com. Okay, hopefully next week I'll have a surprise birthday episode to share with you all. Until then, this is just Jess. Keep going, even if it's limping.